Hey everyone, Eric Thurber here. Today we're going to be talking about masking in Adobe Premiere Pro 2024. And basically what we're going to do is turn this into this using adjustment layers. And it's really not a hard procedure at all. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. So let's get started. So let's create a couple of adjustment layers for some masking. It's a pretty simple procedure. So here I have my little video, and it's a little dark down on the bottom, and I want to add some more contrast to the top, right? So I'll be adding 2 adjustment layers. So let's start with that. We'll click on this little guy down here, go to adjustment layer. Just let it inherit the properties that it already has. And then I'll just click on it and call this one foreground. Drag it in, resize it to where I want to use it in my clip, in this case the entire clip. Make sure it's highlighted. Okay, then we're going to go over here under this panel and we're going to select this little box. You could do a circle too, but the box for this works really well. So I'll click that. You can see it draws a little box in here. Now what you want to do is just make sure you see where you're going to put these corners. So instead of fit, I always choose 50% so I can see everything. All I really care about in this specific thing is just the bottom dark area. So I'm going to draw a box around that. Real rough, doesn't matter. None of these corners matter. The only thing that matters is this top piece right here. Okay. And so we're going to want that to blend in a little bit. So what we do is we come back over to this panel and you just click on this 100 or this 10 where it's feathered and drag it to the right, and you see how it's feathering that area. That's about what you want, right? Because it'll create a blend. The corners and the sides down here, none of that matters. Just drag that off the screen so it's not affected. Now any changes I make are going to be strictly on this layer mask right here. So I want to drag the highlights up a little bit, right? Maybe add a little bit of exposure, whatever. This is all at your discretion. But we're just sectioning off this area and we're playing with it. Maybe a little bit of that. Okay. And so now when we play this, you can see, and I can turn off, whoop, on, off, on, off. Okay. But we also have an issue here, right? Because let's go ahead and take this back to the beginning, is it moves and that light shifts, right? We don't want that over here because I've already, we brightened up that little spot. So what we can do is started this path and everything. What I can do is I can drag this, make sure that mask path is selected, and I'll drag this down like this. Start to drag it off a little bit, the screen. So it only stays where I want it to. Now you can see that it put this little diamond there, right? That's going to mean that it's going to just move with it. Cool, huh? Okay. And then to the very end, I'll just make it even smaller, or probably remove most of it. Down to here. Down. Whoop. Control Z when I do that. Like so. Okay. Now we can see it just sort of tweens with the whole thing. Okay. And maybe I want that a little bit more off here, so I'll make a change. Now notice right here there's nothing, but when I make this change, as soon as I make the change and commit it, it adds that little diamond. So that's basically how we do that here. Let me just make sure that that's even further down. And it'll just kind of move where you tell it to go. Okay, so that's one. Now let's do the same thing. Let's add another one for the sky. Another adjustment layer. We'll call this sky. And I'm going to drag this one up above the last one. So again, we're going to highlight it, drag it to where we want it. And see, it's a little blown, right? I mean, there's not a lot we can do with this because it's washed out, but we can add some contrast. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on this again. Same deal. We're at 50% here. So I can see up above and below the actual clip. And now I'm going to drag that down to here. Something like that. All I care about is this line. The rest needs to really be off the mat. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and feather. So just click on this 10 and drag it to the right, and then you're feathering. Okay, and we'll drag that down a little bit. So that's going to be our blend area in that feather part of the mask. Okay, and now what do I want to do up here? Well, I'll just add some contrast. See, that kind of takes a little, it's almost like a dehaze effect. And maybe we'll just add a little bit of warmth, something like that. Okay, so let's uncheck that. Check it, uncheck it, so you can see the difference here, down here at this eyeball. Okay, so we'll turn that back on. And again, we're going to have to click on mask path. So let's bring it back up by clicking on mask feather, just the word. That brings it back up. Now go to mask path. Okay, and we're going to click the toggle animation. And you see that, put that little diamond there. And then click on the word mask feather again to bring it back up. So for the most part, I really don't need to change this. But let's say I do want to change it a little bit right here. Drag it down. Okay, so it'll follow that path to a degree. And really that's all there is to it. Now we've got two different masks.